over to you.
And in a fortnight, there'll be new episodes. A fan of that podcast, just subscribe. We've been away 'cause we have other jobs. We want to quit them. Hello.
Oh my god, I wasn't expecting that.
If anyone is new coming into this, I mean, you know, this is just what it is.
Ooh,
hello.
That's the trailer.
Welcome to I'm a Fan of That, the show where we talk about the wonderfully complicated worlds of fandom through the objects we love. This is a short little bonus because we could not wait. But as my intro song said, we're going to be on there in your feeds in a fortnight from when this comes out. Woohoo!
Yeah, it's a nice surprise, isn't it?
Oh, I should introduce, I'm Vivian.
Oh, and I'm Holly. Hi, hello. We do podcasting and other jobs, apparently. Yes, we do.
We do, unfortunately.
Yeah. I don't want to quit mine. I quite like it, but it would be nice if I didn't have to do so many of them.
I want to quit one of mine.
Yeah, well, exactly. Anyway, if you hadn't guessed from Vivian singing the intro, this little bonus episode, this little teaser for the new series is all about our T-Swift. The Taylor.
Yes.
The Swifties.
For anyone,
I don't know what to say.
Anyone not aware, on April 19th, which I had counting down on a calendar, I don't know about you, but on April 19th, Taylor Swift dropped a new album and then very quickly afterwards decided to drop another 15 tracks. And no, it's a double album! Woo!
Wow. Very exciting. In my brain, I was just going like, Taylor Swift.
Yes. So things have been
That's kind of what it
exploding
feels
with Taylor Swift. Have you listened to it at all?
I've heard the little bits that are on TikTok and Reels, or your short format video program of choice. No, I actually haven't, because I'm going to be honest, I'm not the biggest Taylor Swift person. It's not that I'm sort of neutral on Taylor Swift. If she comes on the radio, great. If she doesn't come on the radio, okay. But I'm not necessarily going to go out of my way to get the new album or anything like that. I quite like Shake It Off, but then who doesn't? It's just a fun song. So yeah, I haven't heard much of it. I've heard that little clip that's like, you couldn't survive in the asylum that I was raised, or whatever, that bit. And I have seen an awful lot of people dissecting the lyrics of the songs already.
Yes.
In like little cutesy graphics about the line of the song and then what they think it means, which is adorable.
There is a really weird thing going on. So I've been successfully staying away from Taylor Swift's fandom. I like Taylor Swift music and I partake of it away from other people because I don't want to get sucked in.
I feel like there's a rabbit hole there for you that you're just going to be like...
It would consume my life and I would end up publishing 5 books. And this isn't where I want to be right now in my life. Maybe later. But what I find... I did kind of step into it because after listening to the album, just the first part of the album, one time through, I went, the fans must be... I was just really interested because there are several songs on the album directly about the fans. Ooh. In a negative way.
Oh.
And in an understandably negative way. And I was fascinated, so I started kind of looking into it a little bit. And basically, the fan base right now are very split between the people who can read lyrics and people who are still trying to figure out which boy that song is about.
Right? Okay.
Which is so absolutely fascinating. So that's been my little fun exegesis.
So I was saying just before we started recording this that most of my interaction with this particular new album has been watching other people making comments or in fact memeing what the Taylor Swift fandoms, the Swifties, are doing with the way they dissect lyrics, which I'm going to be honest, is something that's been a long time coming because I think a lot of people have kind of gone, yo, you're a cult, what the hell's going on? I don't mean that in a, it's just, I think there's a lot of there's a lot of kind of the dissecting of lyrics, the getting into it, looking for all the Easter eggs, trying to find the clues that she's leaving, all that kind of stuff that I can totally see from an outside perspective looks bonkers. But then I also kind of want to point out to these people and be like, you do exactly the same thing with your fandom of choice. It just so happens to be that Swifties are a huge, huge fandom, and so it's everywhere and you can't escape it, and that's a bit annoying. It is kind of funny to see the memeing of the memes. Like the levels of memes all the way down. I sent one to you just before in the chat where it was like a little graphic of Taylor Swift, and then it's like badger, 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 mushroom, like, and being like, this is what the lyrics of the new song mean. And I was like, that categorically funny just because it's made a reference to something from the early 2000s. And it tells me so much about the person who's made this. I think there's a level of well-meaning jest that fans will make fun of each other in general. Fans, Trekkies, Star Wars people, they have like a relatively mild rivalry or whatever, this kind of thing. But I can totally understand that maybe the Swifties aren't super chill with having their way of doing fandom made fun of. I don't know. But that's the internet for you, isn't it? I've literally seen today 2 essays on why a character who is currently unnamed in the new Bad Batch series is a character who died earlier in the series, and the other one being why it isn't that character, and they were both incredibly long and in parts on Twitter. No one gets a leg to stand on in this fight. No one.
Yeah.
But I quite like it. I quite like people interacting with each other and being like, oh, this is how you're doing it. This is funny. Let's make a version of that we don't understand this, but like we like what you're doing, so let's do it. Or whatever. I think people who get unnecessarily het up about fandom stuff, and I say this as somebody who absolutely has got unnecessarily het up about fandom stuff in the past and will do again, sometimes you've got to take a step back and have a cup of tea and like be like, okay, maybe I was being crazy. They're made up people, or this is a parasocial relationship I have with a celebrity, so they don't need me to defend them online. What do you think?
Like I said, I've been kind of staying away from some of it, but popping in to kind of see the arguments between people has been really fun, particularly people who don't know how to read a metaphor.
Yeah.
So there's a whole song called But Daddy, I Love Him, and that song is particularly, the entire song is to the fans about the fans and how much they are doing exactly what you're saying of this, I am going to try to protect her and fight for her and protect her honor, and it's mostly about what happened when she started dating Matt Healy.
Mm-hmm.
And the reactions to that and things like that. And in the song is kind of a metaphor for it by kind of taking the role of a young girl who's in love with the bad boy and how the entire town is trying to keep them apart. And her whole point is like, let me make my own mistakes. Like it, yeah. And she has admitted in the songs as well as in life, it was a mistake. I shouldn't have been there, but I had just broken up with somebody. I wasn't in a good headspace. I went to a comfortable place. It bit me in the ass. Let me get bit in the ass.
Yeah.
And, you know, that's the entire song is about that. And yet people are trying to dissect, you know? And it's just one of those things where it's like she's wrote an entire song about exactly what you're doing right now, which is incredibly entertaining.
I do find it interesting that she's chosen to address the fans in that way, because I didn't, up until recently, I would have kind of said that she was sort of keeping things very separate and being like, okay, cool, you guys, you do your thing, that's fine, I'll leave you some little Easter eggs or whatever if that's something you want because it's fun, kind of in the same way that movies do. And maybe she kind of feels like she's fed them. I don't know. I don't want to be parasocial about it. I don't want to speak for Taylor Swift. But it's interesting to see that maybe she is having some thoughts about what that is, what that looks like.
Yeah, and I can imagine that, you know, when it's small things, it's fine. But I think as you grow up, you start to realize that some of those things that you thought were small because you were young actually do massively affect you. The number of songs that she's written about the John Mayer relationship, which was a creepy relationship. He was far too old for her, and she writes about that, about how creepy it was, but how at the time you don't know.
Yeah.
Because you're a child.
Yeah. And young people, you know, it's very difficult to see these things for what they are.
Yeah.
And all that kind of stuff. But I also think because her fans, a lot of them are relatively young as well, they're going to be struggling to there's going to be an extra level of understanding in there. And I can maybe see that kind of in the same way that obviously like other artists have said they regretted writing songs about their exes or whatever, but they were processing it and that's their way of processing it. And now they've done that forever. I can see that maybe there are things that she's like, I'd really like this one to maybe lie and let's not overanalyze it. It is what it is and I want to move on from it. Because if your fans aren't letting you move on from something you did, it might be very difficult to get closure on it.
Yeah.
I don't know.
And so I can kind of see how it might have built up over a very long period of time and how recent events kind of made it almost snap in that kind of way. And there's some really cool production choices. So one of the songs, I Can Do It With a Broken Heart, which is a rad song, by the way. It's one of my favorites on the album. But it's all about being able to still perform and be functional, even though you're, like, dying on the inside. And as someone who has very functional depression, I'm like, oh, girl, I feel you. But there's a really interesting production choice on it where when it hits the bridge and leading into the chorus, the sound underlying it is all of the things that she would hear in her earpiece while performing on stage in the Eras tour.
Oh, that's so interesting.
Because her and Joe broke up right before the Eras tour started. So she's doing all of that with a broken heart. But it's a really interesting choice that kind of layers not only kind of the choice of song and stuff like that, but with the actual what it was like for her, like this is what was running through her head on stage kind of thing.
Absolutely. I think it's really interesting as well because one of the other things I've seen is people kind of going off about how, oh, you'll talk about her, she's this lyrical genius and all this sort of music prodigy, blah blah blah. She's not that good, and I'm like, that makes you look stupid. Sorry. You don't have to like her, you don't have to think it's music that's good for you or whatever, but she actually is good. And you don't have to think every lyric she ever wrote was fucking Shakespeare. Not everything Shakespeare wrote was fucking Shakespeare. People are allowed to not have every line in a song be perfect and brilliant, but you also don't get to necessarily come into a space that's not your fandom and tell them they're wrong about that. Also, you can have a little fun at people's expense. That's fine. I don't actually have an issue with that. I think having a little bit like, oh, everyone's doing this and it's what's happening and we can have a bit of badger mushroom, that's fine, but actually kind of coming in and being like, no, you're all stupid and wrong and you shouldn't like this, she's a multimillionaire and you're being ridiculous, is like, now you're spoiling the fun. Okay, now you're spoiling the fun for everybody involved because you've taken it too seriously. And maybe that I would imagine there's people at the other end of that spectrum, like you said, the people who are having arguments within this Taylor Swift fandom who are spoiling the fun for everyone at the other end, because there always is somebody. But I do think that like there is absolutely no need to rag on something that particularly young women like. I think fair enough to criticize Taylor Swift. There are things to criticize her for. Saying the lyrics of your song are bad and therefore you're bad because I think they're bad. It's not a reason. No. Come on. It just makes the arguments about what we do need to criticize. And I would say this about any artist. I think there's reasonable critiques of a lot of big name artists at the moment. I've been seeing some interesting takes on Beyonce right now, which I think is super interesting, particularly from black activists who are talking about the good and the bad that she's doing and all this sort of stuff and how you can't just put someone on a pedestal. Very interesting stuff. But the things with Taylor Swift I think is very interesting because I think we are currently living in an age where parasocial relationships are the height of everything. We have so much interaction with people, and it's so interesting to see. The Matt Healy thing was fascinating for me, where people were like lawyers arguing this thing, and I'm like, somebody you don't know, you don't know her, has chosen to be in a relationship with somebody who is clearly an arse, as far as we can tell. That affects you in what way? Other than maybe we need to, like, if that's the beliefs that she holds, then maybe that's a problem. But it was a really interesting thing to see people get so angry about it, and on both sides of it as well.
There's also a difference between being like, ooh, maybe I'll kind of think about how much I want to be supporting Taylor Swift from now on, and if like you say, if this is a sign that maybe she holds very similar beliefs.
Yeah.
But going to the extreme that some of these people did is a bit much. But of course, I'm also somebody that doesn't go on TikTok and post about my thoughts and exegesis study of Taylor Swift. I just do it while folding laundry and going, Tom, did you hear this?
Yeah, exactly. I think there's a slight difference in that we aren't necessarily engaging with the culture around it. So, you know, I actually know very little about Matt Healy other than the few bits and pieces I've heard around the internet.
I only know that he's a dick. And that's
yeah, that's it. I'm like, I know you're a terrible human being. That's it. So it's a very interesting thing to see people talk about. I feel like someone's going to be like, you defended Matt. No, I'm not. I'm just being interested by internet culture and how it works. Sorry. I find everybody taking moments of time and analysing them to the nth degree and being like, that means such and such and such and such a thing. Really fascinating. I actually would relate it back to what's just happened with Watcher Entertainment on YouTube. They make Ghost Files, Mystery Files. They used to be part of BuzzFeed. They're no longer part of BuzzFeed. And they recently decided that they were going to launch a streaming platform of their own because they were feeling that they couldn't make the revenue they needed through YouTube without having control from ads and sponsors and all this sort of stuff. And they didn't want to do that, which is very reasonable. I feel like YouTube is a very difficult place to make money in any sustainable thing, particularly if you are actually wanting to make companies. So they actually have employees and all that, quite a, you know, I think they said something like 20 to 30 employees to make these shows and all this sort of stuff. So they are a company, and Patreon and YouTube may not be the ways to move that forward, which I think is a very reasonable thing to say. I think the way they went about it, and just basically going, we're going to have a subscription service and you all need to pay for our content now, was not the way to do that. But there was some real like a lot of people were very much like, let us give you some constructive critique on this. This is a bad idea. Take it, you know, what can you do? How can you fix this? There was a lot of really good comments like that, I think. But there was also a lot of very parasocial comments about how clearly this must have been one of the members' decisions and the others wouldn't have gone along with it unless he persuaded. And it's like, guys, these are 3 people on the internet you don't know. And actually, quite a lot of what you're saying right now is actively racist. So you need to think about that, you know? Like, it's not just making a snide comment. It's like, you are being real assholes. And you don't know these people. You only know them through what they've chosen to present to you online. What they have put out into the world in their online spaces, that's it. So whatever decisions been come to here, as a company, they've all been part of that. And you can't say it was one person or another and any of this kind of stuff, because actually it's not just 3 guys sat on a sofa, though that's what the video is. Let's be honest, you can prefer one or other of these people and their content on the channel over the others, but that doesn't mean that they're your blorbo in a fictional piece of work where you can decide exactly how they'll behave. They're people, and you just need to be, you can be upset, you can offer critique, you can offer the fact that it's upset you that what they're doing, but you don't get to go, so-and-so would never do this, you're bullying him into doing it, or like whatever. Mm-hmm. Which I definitely saw comments like that. And that's the kind of thing I feel about the whole Taylor Swift thing as well, is that like the people who were like, Taylor would never do this, it's Matt Healy, blah, 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 and it's like, whoa, okay, you need to be like, she's a human being with her own autonomy, and if that means you have to critique her, you should. And you can do that in your own space, you don't have to do it on the internet either. Matt Healy is clearly not a nice person, that's fair enough, but we literally have no idea what's going on here, and offering fair critique, fair criticism of the situation, fine, but randomly going on rants on the internet about all of it kind of doesn't help anybody. And actually I think it's pretty bad for people's mental health to be in that space, because it's not necessarily healthy. Sorry, that was a really weird segue, but I kind of think it made the point of like, please, parasocial relationships are bad for your brain. Please just take a step away from internet and celebrities in general. Have parasocial relationships with fictional people instead, because then it doesn't matter.
Get into arguments online about fictional people.
Yeah, that's fine. Oh my god.
Life advice from a fan of that podcast.
Don't get in arguments online with anybody about anything. It's bad for you. Maybe the internet was a mistake. I don't know.
Well, if you want to hear more of this...
Oh, please come and listen to me have thoughts I haven't fully constructed around fandom online. Oh, God.
Yeah, so we're going to be back May 13th is season 2, episode 1. If you are worried about missing it, go and subscribe wherever it is that you go to listen to your podcasts, and you will find it there.
You can also follow us on social media. We are Fan of That Pod pretty much everywhere. Instagram, I think we have a Twitter, X, whatever it's called.
I don't know.
Oh, whatever. But we definitely have TikTok. We definitely have Instagram. You can find us on both of those. And we will be uploading little clips, little pictures, lots of exciting things coming up soon. And yeah, give us a review as well. That's super helpful. And you can be like, we'd like Ollie to think out their thoughts better, and that would be great. That's fine. But yes, please go and give us a subscribe and a review and share, like, all of those wonderful things that you can do. And we'll see you in 2 weeks.
We'll see you in 2 weeks.
Bye.
Bye.